Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me again. Let's just get right into it. We'll start with mortgage applications. The activity was up 5% for purchases, 12% for refinances. Not surprising given interest rates had dropped for us a little bit the prior weeks. This week, not so much. We'll get into that later. Jobless claims, initial claims down 1,000, but continuing claims up 17,000. And speaking to that, when we talk about job creations, I've talked about this in the past. When the BLS numbers are reported, they seem to always beat expectations, and then we get revisions for the following 2 months. And true to form, the January numbers were revised down, and they were revised down lower by 112,000 job creations. That's pretty big. That's a big miss. So it'll be interesting to see what February numbers look like if we see those revisions. I do expect to see some though. Also this week was retail sales showing for the month of February up 0.6%, but the expectation was 0.8%. So right now what we are seeing is a little bit of slowing in consumer spending. And also the January number was revised. It was initially reported at down -0.8%, but it now revised to a -1.1%. So there is indications of slowing within the market with consumer spending. Also this week was CPI and PPI report. We'll start with CPI. Do have a chart for that showing that the headline number month over month up 0.44%. Year over year, it did actually tick up 0.1%. But the core number, this is the one the Feds watch more closely. Month over month up 0.3%, just over. But it did tick down just a little bit, 0.1%. So good that we're continuing to see the number come down. It's just not at the pace that the Feds want to see, unfortunately, which doesn't encourage them to do any cuts anytime soon unless we see a little more movement there. So within that component, we've talked about this several times. This is some of the key components that impact that core number. Airlines up 3.6% for the month of February. So I thought that was kind of interesting. A lot of traveling, apparently. Motor vehicles continue to be kind of a nemesis, up 0.9%. And then we always have the shelter component with that owner's equivalent rent being one of those numbers that is factored into the core number. However, it is not a number that can be factually quantified. It is a very subjective number. So just find this very interesting that this is a component of our inflation when it's basically people saying what they would rent their property for. And it's just a subjective number. Again, you can have that bias with what you think you can get for rent within your, for your own property. Also this week was PPI, that is wholesale inflation. That did show February to be at 0.6%, which was much hotter than the expectation of 0.3% for the headline number. Now the core number was also up basically 3%. It was, 0.3% at 0.36%. But the year-over-year number hanging tight at 2%. Primary driver behind those core numbers for PPI was energy costs, which were up 4.4% month over month. So energy continuing to be one of those up and down type items that have been impacting inflation. Now, important next week is the Feds do make an announcement next week. We'll be meeting to announce what their plans are as it relates to short-term interest rates, whether they're going to start making cuts or not, and when they project to maybe do anything, if they get bold enough to make a commitment. We'll see. That will be kind of important because, as you can see, if we go to the charts, MBS market's having a rough week. Started back on Tuesday. CPI report came out. Wasn't too bad. We kind of had a modest reaction within the market. But then, yesterday and today with the PPI number and so forth, it's been pretty brutal. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of ground. So rates did tick up this week. We're probably around just over 7% at this point, 7.25% probably. If you're doing it par, basically not paying for not paying for a lower interest rate. You always have the option of paying points for a lower interest rate, but with projections that interest rates will eventually come down, whether it makes financial sense to buy the rate down now when you'll probably end up refinancing it to an even lower rate, probably not very cost effective, which is why most people still go in at par rate even though you're hearing advertisements saying, hey, you can get rates in the fives. Yeah, if you want to pay for it. So that's where we're at right now. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I do appreciate when you like my videos and any comments. I'm always interested to hear what your thoughts are on what's going on. You know, do you think the economy is slowing down? What are your thoughts? What do you think the feds need to do? Do they need to just finally bite the bullet and say we're going to lower short-term interest rates? That would be great. I wish it was coming, but love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I hope you survived the snowstorm. No snow projected for this weekend, so enjoy the whiteout that we have to view. It's really pretty right now, but I will see you next week.